is Gina. Today I'm going to show you how to make this really pretty chandelier component necklace with the chandelier components and beads from the amber and aqua or the champagne and sapphire treasure bags that were just recently released. Now I do have some of these components on the website, so if you would like to try this necklace, you can. You are not left out, or you can just use this as a techniques video and use whatever you have in your stash to make something similar. So this is the sapphire and champagne edition here. These are the champagne colored drops that are in the champagne and sapphire treasure bag. This turns out really, really pretty. Of course, we make components all the way up around the back. Show you that. And it goes around the neck. Really pretty. I'll have them all laid out in a photograph for you for the thumbnail, and I show them at the end of the video so that you can see them laid out perfectly. I just wanted you to see the focal part in my hand against skin just to start the video here. And this is what this one looks like. So this is from the amber and aqua treasure bag, obviously. So they both lay out really nice. They turn out really pretty. If you wanted to make a set of earrings, you could go to the website and get some more of these components. I will be ordering some more. I do not have the drops, but you can use almost any type of bead to do this particular technique. It'll work just fine. All you really need are the components and some wire. So let's go ahead and look and see what it takes to make this particular necklace and get started. Okay. For this project today, we're going to be using a couple of things from the newest treasure bags, the amber and aqua and the sapphire and champagne treasure bags. And regardless of which bag you have the same strands, just in different colors. So I have already created with my original design the necklace in the champagne color drops. We're going to be using the amber drops in this one today, and of course you just use whichever color you have. These are 8 by 10 drops and you have a 16-inch strand. What we're going to be using from the treasure bag that are in both treasure bags also is this little component. It's kind of a elongated rhombus shape. It's got a little crystal on top. We will be using one of these. You have 2 in each bag. And I do have some of these left over. It's very limited, but I will put them on the website if you want to get some. Then we're going to be adding a bunch of stuff to the bag. So we are going to be using some 20 gauge wire, and this is the wire I'm using. It's by Beadsmith, and it's called Wire Elements. And this is actually 18 gauge wire. I'm sorry, we're going to be using 18 gauge wire. You can use 20 gauge, that's fine too. And then we are going to need from that about a 4.5-inch piece cut, and then a bunch of 2 to 2.25 inch pieces. So you'll want to make 10, I believe, of these. So I will put everything in the material list beneath the video player so that you can get accurate numbers, but I believe you're going to need 10 2-inch, 2.25 inch pieces. Then you're going to need some head pins. I'm using this very small ball head pin for mine, and you're going to need 12 of them. You'll want a head pin that's easy to bend because we're going to make wired components that wrap around on the little pendant component, or chandelier component. So you want to make sure that they are very flexible, soft, so that you can wrap them very well. Then we're going to use some seed beads. I have an 8/0 seed bead. This is Toho Galvanized Permanent Finish Starlight, and I will be using those on the components that I make. So you'll need a little pile of those, or you can just not use them. You can put any little spacer you want on there. Then we're going to be using some jump rings. So I've got this 6mm round jump ring that's outside diameter, and I believe you're going to need 12 to 15, something like that. And again, I will put accurate numbers in the description box. Then you'll need two, and this is about a 3mm jump ring. You'll need two of those. And then I have one larger jump ring for my clasping, and this is about an 8mm jump ring. You will also need a lobster claw clasp, or you can use any clasping you would like. So that's what we're going to be using. Of course, you're going to need some tools. A nylon nose plier would be great, chain nose plier, flat nose plier, round nose plier, and some flush cutters. And let's go ahead and get started with this project. Okay, to start this project, we're going to make 5 dangles to directly attach to this component. So you need a head pin, pick up one of your crystals and drop it with the fat side down towards the ball part of the head pin. And then pick up your round nose plier, place it right above your crystal, and then just push. I'm holding my hand so that it's parallel to the bead mat, and the pliers are sideways. Now I'm going to push my wire over the top of the back prong here. Then I'm going to turn my hand vertical. My pliers are now positioned up and down, and I am going to bring the wire over the top of the plier, and then as I do that, I'm going to turn my hand parallel again and draw the wire underneath the pliers. When I take it out my plier, I have a loop that looks like this. Now we're going to grab our flat nose pliers and we're going to open this little loop, and then we are going to put it on the component. So just slide it on here like this. Now I'm going to hold on to the loop. So I'm just going to position my pliers to where I can hold on to that loop while it's in the component here. I'm going to push my excess wire towards the plier so that it's basically at the same angle, and then I'm going to start to turn that excess wire around the wire between the crystal and the plier here. And I'm going to turn it a full 3 turns here so that that crystal is nice and secure on there. Then I'm going to take the plier off, and I'm going to grab my flush cutters, and I'm going to cut as close as I can to the bead and take this tail off. And that's a little long, so let me cut that a little shorter. Now there's a little tail that's sticking out. I'm going to grab my other chain nose pliers. These have like a little crimp section in them. It really helps to have these. These are Xeron crimp pliers, and I am going to just place that little tail in one of those little crimp grooves, and I can push it down perfectly, just like that. Now you can use a regular chain nose plier to do that too. You don't have to have these crimp pliers. They just work really well for it. So that is what I have done. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other 2 or on the other 4 loops on the component here, and then we'll be back. Okay, so now you can see I have put all 5 of my dangles onto my component. Now if you find this too difficult, just make a basic wire component like I'm going to show you next, and then you can attach them with really small jump rings, and that makes it a little bit easier than having to navigate around the component to make your little drops. Now I'm going to make some basic components because I want a drop that I can hang in the middle of this component here, and then I want a couple that I can dangle off of the focal area I'm going to create for this necklace. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab one of our drops and one of our head pins, and again drop the fat side down towards the ball part of the head pin, and I'm going to grab my round nose plier again. Now we're working towards the front of the plier because we don't need a great big loop, and it's narrower at the front of the plier. So now that I'm holding it right above the crystal, I'm going to push that wire over the back portion of the plier, and again I'm holding it to where my hand is flat like this and parallel to the bead mat, and then I'm going to turn my hand right into that bend of the wire we just created. And now my pliers are up and down or vertical, and I am going to bring the wire over the top of the plier. And when I get about 3/4 of the way around, I'm going to start to turn my hand to where it is positioned horizontal, like it was in the very beginning. Then you're going to pull the plier out, and you're going to grab a hold of a flat nose plier here, and you're going to hold on to that loop just like this. And then you're going to bring the excess piece of wire the same direction as your plier. So it's just like the same angle. And then I'm just going to switch hands because I wrap better with my right hand. Now the wire is underneath the wire that's going into the crystal, and I'm going to start to turn it, and I'm going to turn 3 times. If my first turn is a little low, then I can just push the wire up towards my plier with my other pliers. And then I can just begin turning until I turn one layer, one coil on top of the next. And I want 3 complete coils, just like that. And then we're going to cut this off. Now that that's cut off, I can just leave this in my plier, turn it, find where my little end is, and then squeeze it down. That helps keep it from turning and making it difficult to squeeze down the little end. So now I've held it steady, pushed down the end, and I have a component that looks like this. You are going to make 7 components that look just like this, and we'll be back. Okay, so I have made my 7 components with the little loops on them. And now I'm going to attach one right in the center of my rhombus shaped component here. So my chandelier component. So I've got these little jump rings. They're 3 millimeters around in diameter. Perhaps 4. They're small, so you don't want anything larger than a 4 millimeter round jump ring. And what you're going to do is find the opening of the jump ring. It's right here. Put a plier on either side and then just twist it open like this. We're going to twist this open kind of wide because what we need to do, and it's a balancing act, is we're going to put the jump ring through the loop on the component you just made, and then put it on the chandelier component. Balance it on the bead mat like this, and then just close that jump ring the best you can. Just like that. So it's just a bit of a balancing act, and I just want to make sure that's closed tightly. And now I have my little component just kind of dangling on one side here. Now I'm going to lay it out and have it to where I can see exactly which side of the component I'm going to attach my other jump ring to. So I'm going to grab this jump ring, open it the same way I did the first one. And I seem to have distorted that one, so let me get another one. And just, these are really thin jump rings, so I'm trying not to distort it, but I don't seem to be doing a very good job here. There we go. So I have twisted this one open. I'm going to scoop up the opposite side of the jump ring, or of the loop on my component, and you can see I'm just holding it against the bead mat so that I can balance everything. Then I will grab the other side of the jump ring with another plier and twist it closed again so that it is holding my component right in the middle of the chandelier component, just like this. Now hopefully you could see really well how I did that. Let me center this and then I'll zoom in so you can just see how it lays out. Just like that. And now when I pick it up, it'll dangle perfectly in the center of my chandelier component, just like that. Now we're going to make a wire, another component with wire that we can hang this component on and put some dangles around and some beads and make the focal of our necklace. So I have got this, it's probably about a 5-inch piece of wire. It's a little curved, so I would say it's about 4¼ inches, 4½ inches long. And I'm just going to take my nylon nose pliers and I'm just going to gently, this is slightly curved, but I'm just going to gently curve it just a little bit like this. And then I'm going to take my flat nose pliers and about 1/4 inch down on my pliers, my curve is up towards me, so the curve is, the hollow part is towards me, and then I'm going to bend this away from me, just like this. Now I'm going to grab my round nose pliers, and if you feel that this is a little long, or if it's not flush cut, you can trim this, and I'm just going to trim it a little bit and make sure it's flush cut by cutting it with the flat part towards me, or towards the wire. And then I am going to grab my round nose pliers and I'm going to place them right at the end of this piece of wire, just like this, and I am going to start to turn. I'm going to turn as far as I can. I'm going to take my pliers out, turn them over, put them back in towards the very end of the wire, and continue to turn. Now, turn as far as you can to make a loop. Now, if your loop isn't perfectly centered on the wire, you can put your pliers back in, move it towards the back of the loop, right here. So on this side, I'm moving it back, and then I can grab my flat nose pliers, lift the open end, and then bring it back down and shimmy it towards the other side of the wire to close my loop, just like you would open and close a jump ring. Now I have a nice little loop on this piece of wire, as you can see, and I'm going to hold it again, and I'm just going to very gently curve this wire just a little bit. And we can curve it more once we get our components on here and make it the shape we want. We just want a gentle curve in it. If you curve it too much, then you're not going to be able to slide your beads on. So you don't want to curve it too much. Now we are going to grab our crystals. Let me get a few more out here off my strand. And we are going to place 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 crystals on here. And we're also going to put some of our components, the 6 that we have left over of our components, we're going to put in between the beads. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the fat side of the drop, and we're going to push it on the wire towards the loop we just made. So let me see if I can actually get my fingers to work here, and just slide that on. And then I'm going to put another one, and before I do that though, I'm going to slide on one of my components. So just slide the loop on, and then slide your next crystal on, and this time I'm going to use the narrow side of the drop first and push it towards the loop. Then we're going to pick up another one of our looped components and drop it down. And again, we're going to put on a crystal with the fat side towards the loop as we put it on, just like this. And again, another one of our looped components, and then another crystal with the narrow side towards this loop here. So we're putting the narrow side on first. Come here. Just like that. Then I'm going to set this down. I'm going to grab my chandelier component now, and I said that you only needed 2 4mm round jump rings. You are actually going to need 3. So I'm going to grab another one of these components here, or another jump ring, excuse me, and I'm going to straighten this out because I bent it, and I'm going to fix it so I can use it again. And then I'm going to grab a couple of my pliers, and I'm going to open this 4mm jump ring, 3 4mm, something like that, no bigger than 4mm. And this has a little tiny thing on it, so let me take this off. So there was like a little extra component, or flash is what we called it in dentistry, on it. So I'm just going to take that off with my plier, and I'm going to put the jump ring on here, and then I'm going to close the jump ring. And then now that I have a jump ring on my component, I'm going to make sure that I have the side up that has the little rhinestone on the top here, and I'm going to slide the jump ring on to the component I'm building on my longer piece of wire here, just like this. Then I'm going to grab another one of my crystals, and from the fat side I'm going to put it onto the wire, just like that. Then I will continue again putting my looped components in between my crystals. Now I have the narrow side this way, so I'm going to put another one with the narrow side first. So I just have the narrow sides come together, and if I have a fat side next, I put the fat side on. It just makes the crystals lie together nicely. Now I'm going to put another loop and a crystal from the fat side, and a loop and a crystal from the narrow side, like this. Now I have my component. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pick this up, and I am going to make sure that I have a nice little curve in my wire first. And that looks pretty good, the curve. We can always adjust it more once we make our loop here. So I'm going to hold this in my hand so that the loop is touching the palm inside and everything is flush and pushed together as I'm holding it so that it doesn't move. And then I'm going to bend this wire just about 1 millimeter away from the last crystal. I'm going to bend it straight up, just like this. Then I'm going to position it to where I can lay this over my finger like this now, and I am going to cut this down to about 1/4 inch. And then I am going to grab my flat nose or my round nose pliers, position it at the very end of the wire here, and start to turn. I'm going to turn as far as I can, and once I can't turn anymore, I'm going to take my pliers out, turn them over, put them back in towards the very end of the wire here on the inside, and turn. And I'm just going to turn until my loop is closed. Now I'm going to take my little piece out. I'm going to grab this loop and this loop, and I'm going to make sure they are turned exactly the same direction. And I'll close this loop a little better. So you can just doctor it up, make sure that it's laying nice, lay it on your bead mat, make sure that it's flat. You can change the curve a little if you need more of a curve or less of a curve. Just gently bend the wire, and then you will have a really nice little component just like this. Now, the next thing we're going to do is make some components to lead up and around the top of the necklace so that you can wear the necklace, of course. So we're going to move this down, and we are going to make 10 of these components, and I'm going to show you how. And then we will put them together with 6mm jump rings, and you'll need about 12 of these. So, or actually more than that. I'll put exact numbers. I can't seem to get it together here, but I think it's around 12. So what we're going to do is we have cut our 2 inches of wire. So I had to cut 10 of these. And what we're going to do with these is basically the same thing we just did with that bigger wire. We're going to go 1/4 of an inch down onto this piece of wire here and bend it away from us. Grab your round nose pliers and place it at the very end of the plier here, so it's flush with the back of the plier, and then just start to turn. Turn as far as you can, take your hand out, turn your plier over, put it back in towards the front of the loop you're creating here at the very end of it, and just finish turning. So now you have a nice little loop in your wire. I'm going to straighten it out because I always mangle it a little bit. And then I am going to put on to this wire an 8/0 seed bead. And then I'm going to put on a crystal with the fat side towards the loop I created here. Then an 8/0 seed bead. Then I'm going to drop on another crystal with the narrow side first. Just like this. And then I'm going to put on another 8/0 seed bead. And drop it down. Now I'm going to grab my flat nose pliers, and this loop is sideways like this. If I hold it against my bead mat, it's this way. So what I want to do is grab my pliers and bring it on the wire so that when I turn my loop, it'll be the same direction up and down. Now, of course, we can fix that at the end, so it's not critical, but I like to position it this way. Now I'm going to put my plier just about 1 millimeter above that 8/0 seed bead and just bend that wire straight back. Now I've got this shape like this. I can put this over the top of my finger, and I can cut about 1/4 of an inch down like this. Then I can grab my round nose pliers again, place it at the very end so that it's flush with the back of my round nose pliers here, and start to turn. Turn as far as I can, take my hand out, put it back in towards the end of the wire on this side here, and continue turning. Now I have a loop. If I don't like the way it's centered, I can move it back towards the back side of the loop. I just place my plier back in, move it back, and then I can put my plier back in and move the other side and close it, just like this. Now I can grab a pair of pliers on either side and straighten them. Now, it seems that this loop is a little bit bigger than that loop, and I want them about the same, so I'm just going to open this side of this loop right here. And I'm going to grab my flash cutters, and I'm just going to cut a tiny bit off of this end here, just like this. And then I'm going to put my round nose pliers back in the loop and turn it. And now my loops are basically the same size. I can doctor him up a little bit. If you don't want to go through that and you want to make sure all your loops are perfect from the very beginning, then just mark a place on your pliers so that you'll always place your plier on that side or on that spot, and then when you turn it, you'll get the same size loop. Just have to make sure that when you cut your piece, it's always the same length also. So when you bend it over and cut it, it needs to be the same length, because if it's not the same length, it doesn't matter where you put it on your pliers, you're not going to get the same exact loop every time. So we are going to make loops or components that look like this. Once you've made your component, you're going to hold it to where the loops that you made are up and down like this, not flat like this, but up and down, and then you're just going to gently bend your component just slightly like this so that it has a nice curve to it. And you're going to make 10 components like that. And then once you have made 10, we'll come back and we will connect them all together. Okay, so now I have made my 10 components. I will have 5 for each side. So leading back to the back of the necklace. Now this is going to make right at an 18-inch necklace. If you want a longer necklace, make more components, or you can connect some more jump rings or perhaps a chain at the end for your lobster claw clasp to hook into and have an extension of the necklace. So now that I have my pieces here, I have made a gentle little curve in each one. I want to connect with that little curve towards the inside. I have turned the component up and down like this so that when my jump ring goes through, it will be flush against the bead pad and my components will be up and down like this. And that way it will ensure that it lays right if you have put your curve in correctly. So you may need to correct your curve a couple of times as we do this, but because there's wire inside there, you can do that quite easily. I'm going to open one of my 6mm jump rings the same way I've been opening. Just place the plier on either side, twist it open, and then I am going to place it on my component here, making sure it quits turning and will be the proper direction. Then I'll place on my component with the curve towards the inside of the necklace. Then I will close the jump ring and lay it out, make sure everything looks nice, and then I'll do the next one. And I will do this with all 5 components on this side, and then I'll travel over to this side and do it with 5 components. Just your components are going to turn a little bit, but when it's finished and when it lays on your neck, it should have a nice curve. The curve should stay in place properly. So go ahead and connect your 5 components on this side and then your other 5 components on this side, and we'll come back and put the clasping on and we will be finished. Okay, so now I have made my necklace, just hooking my jump rings in between each component. And now I am going to put on some jump rings and a lobster claw clasp. So I'm going to grab another about 4mm. Now maybe this is more like a 6mm jump ring. Let me see if I have a smaller one. No, of course not. Okay, so we'll use this one. So I'm going to open this jump ring and I'm going to put it on my lobster claw clasp, and then I'm going to put it on my last unit here. And you can lay it out to make sure that your clasp is going to go on so that the spring part that opens and closes the clasp is towards the outside of the necklace. So I'm just positioning it so my spring is here, and that way it's easier to put on without twisting your necklace. And then I am going to close it. Of course, it moves around on the jump ring, so you know. Let's see if I got that right. Yeah. So that's on there now, and I'm going to grab about an 8mm jump ring, and I'm going to open it, 10mm, something like that, and put it on this side. So I have a nice big jump ring for my lobster claw clasp to hook into, just like that. And now I have completed my necklace. I'm going to lay out both the champagne colored one and the amber one next to each other, come back and show you what it looks like. Be right back. Okay, and here are the necklaces in both colors, and the champagne one turns out really pretty too. It's kind of hard to see how pretty it is against the bead mat because it's the same color basically as the beads, but I'm going to pick it up and show it to you in my hand. This really turns out pretty, and laying against your skin, it's really, really pretty. I do have some more of these components. So if you want to make a pair of matching earrings, just make this part of the component or this part of the necklace on the component and put it on the ear wire. You can do that. I have them in packages of 2, and I think I may go ahead and order some more so I can make packages of 3 for those who did not get the treasure bag so that they can make sets. Right now I just have what's left over from my bead bag. They're limited, but there are a few, so if you want to try this necklace, you certainly can. This is what the champagne one looks like, and this is the amber, if I can get it to where you can see it. And they do dangle perfectly on the neck. They lay nice, and even though we turn the components, and when you take it off, they'll turn and look all funky. When you put it on, if you do not have it twisted, it will lay just really nice in a circular fashion on your throat there. So that's what that looks like. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, please consider subscribing, hitting that notification bell so we can continue making pieces together. I would truly appreciate it. It does help my channel. So anyway, let's see each other again in the next video. Bye-bye.